She deleted the photos, but not fast enough. That was the line that detonated across the internet like a grenade. Short, savage, and impossible to ignore. It came out of Piers Morgan's mouth with all the venom and glee of a man who knew exactly what he was doing. And he did it on live TV. No warning. No filter. No backing down. It wasn't just a jab at Meghan Markle. It was a direct assault on her carefully crafted image. The Duchess of Sussex, the feminist icon, the humanitarian, the mother, reduced in a heartbeat to a viral soundbite about yacht parties and deleted pasts. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. But it wasn't just what Piers said. It was what came next. The screen behind him lit up, not with photos, but with blurred silhouettes and dramatic captions like, "Exclusive. Images they don't want you to see." The studio audience gasped. The co-hosts froze. The producers scrambled. And somewhere in Montecito, a glass of wine may or may not have shattered against the wall. How did we get here? That's the question rattling around the world's media circuits right now. Because this wasn't a random tabloid slip. It was a calculated media ambush. One that tore open the seams of a narrative Meghan has spent years, millions of dollars, and a global platform, trying to stitch together. This wasn't just about a few old photos on a yacht. It was about secrets, power, image control, and a growing public fatigue with curated victimhood. Let's be honest. People have whispered about Meghan's past for years. The yacht girl rumors, the pre-Harry Hollywood connections, the rapid PR glow-up from actress to duchess. It was all dismissed as misogynistic conspiracy until now. Because Piers Morgan didn't just repeat the rumors. He claimed to have seen the photos. And more than that, he mocked her on primetime television with a smirk that said, "What are you going to do now?" The timing was brutal and very, very intentional. This wasn't a coincidence. Just days before the Sussexes were set to launch a new foundation initiative, one meant to pivot their public image back to global changemakers, Piers dropped his bomb. Why now? Because the tide is turning. Because people are asking hard questions. And because someone, somewhere, decided enough was enough. This expose, and make no mistake, it is an expose, is about far more than a spat between a talk show host and a former royal. It's about power, projection, and what happens when carefully airbrushed stories begin to crack under pressure. We're going to take you inside the moment that broke the internet. We're going to retrace the digital breadcrumbs Meghan tried to erase, and ask why she worked so hard to bury them in the first place. And yes, we're going to show you how Piers Morgan, whether you love him or loathe him, pulled off one of the most brutal live television takedowns in recent history. But before we get into the photos, before we dissect the reaction, before we dive into the rumors about what really happened on those yachts off the Monaco coast, we need to ask a more uncomfortable question. Who is Meghan Markle really? Not the curated Instagram version, not the Netflix-approved fairy tale, but the woman behind the lens. The one who walked into Soho House years before Harry, shaking hands with producers, socialites, and men with billion-dollar secrets. Because this story didn't start with Piers Morgan. It started years ago, on a boat, under the sun, and it began with a smile, one that, according to more than one anonymous insider, was rehearsed long before Buckingham Palace ever entered the picture. A deleted past is still a past. Let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, yacht girl is a loaded phrase. Yes, it carries implications, some scandalous, some unsavory, some outright disturbing. And no, we're not here to shame. We're here to reveal. Because when someone rises from obscure cable actress to royal bride in the span of a few headlines, and leaves behind a trail of NDAs, vanished posts, and mysteriously cooperative media outlets, questions will be asked. Especially when someone like Piers Morgan decides to stop playing nice. So here's what we know. There were photos. Photos that existed before Meghan became royalty. Before the palace handlers. Before the Netflix deals and Spotify contracts. Photos that, according to multiple digital archivists and researchers, were wiped in a frenzy of deletion campaigns once her relationship with Prince Harry went public. And yet, as any good journalist will tell you, the internet never forgets. Some of those images were saved. Some were screen-grabbed. Some were archived in places that only now are surfacing, on forums, in private Dropbox leaks, in whistleblower emails. And one of them, allegedly, made its way to Piers Morgan. He didn't show it on air, but he didn't need to. His face said everything. Why it hit so hard and so fast. This wasn't just about humiliation. It was about exposing what Piers, and a growing segment of the public, sees as a royal con job. A woman who sold the world a story of victimhood, racism, and monarchy-induced misery, while hiding skeletons of her own. And here's the twist. It worked for a while. Meghan and Harry's Oprah interview? Massive ratings. Their escape to freedom narrative? Global sympathy. But sympathy has a shelf life. Especially when you go on a victim tour, cash in on royal trauma, and then get exposed for curating your own truth. Piers knew that, and he chose this moment to strike. Not just because he's bitter, not just because he was ghosted, but because he saw the mask slipping, and he wanted the world to see what was underneath. The moment it all erupted. The TV segment lasted barely 3 minutes. But in that time, everything changed. Meghan's past, which had been quietly whispered in backrooms and forums, was dragged onto the global stage. People didn't just speculate anymore. They Googled. They searched Meghan yacht girl photos. They clicked links. They dove into the rabbit hole. And suddenly, hashtags like hashtag Meghan exposed and hashtag yacht girl truth were trending worldwide. This wasn't a smear campaign. It was a reckoning. And it wasn't just Meghan's image that took a hit. It was Harry's credibility. It was the entire Sussex brand. And it was the illusion of untouchable PR polish that crumbled under one man's refusal to play by the rules. So why does this matter now? Because stories like this don't stay quiet anymore. Because in the era of leaks, screenshots, and unfiltered platforms, even duchesses can't control their digital ghosts. And because when someone builds an empire on victimhood, while allegedly erasing evidence of their own power plays, it's not just hypocrisy. It's manipulation. This is about accountability, about what we tolerate from public figures, about the stories they sell us, and what they leave out. And as we peel back the layers of this story, the photos, the yacht culture, the anonymous insiders, the royal reactions, we're going to ask the questions nobody else dares. Who protected Meghan's image? Who helped her hide the past? And most importantly, who just betrayed her? Because according to multiple insiders, someone in her inner circle, someone who knows what happened on those yachts, has decided to flip, to talk, to leak. And Piers Morgan? He was just the first warning shot. Buckle up, because what comes next will change everything you thought you knew about Meghan Markle. And no one, not even the palace, saw it coming. Who pressed the button? That was the question floating around ITV headquarters just minutes after the broadcast. Not because someone made a mistake, but because someone made a decision that would send royal courtiers into panic mode, PR teams into crisis control, and Meghan Markle into what one insider described as meltdown mode. The clip had aired. The segment had gone out live, and it wasn't just a passing comment. It was a calculated strike, the kind you plan in silence, then unleash with surgical precision. Let's set the scene. London, 9:12 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time. Piers Morgan sits comfortably in his signature position on a revamped version of the morning talk show that made him a household name, smug, sharp, ready to pounce. Across from him, 2 co-hosts, one visibly anxious, the other tapping notes nervously. Behind them, a screen. Muted graphics, looping B-roll, until suddenly, the screen flickers, and the words flash. Deleted images. Unseen footage. Meghan Markle, the yacht years. The audience goes silent. Piers leans forward. He doesn't even look at the camera. He's looking at the monitor. The smirk curls across his face like a man unwrapping a long-awaited gift. Then he says it. She deleted the photos, but not fast enough. Live, on air, and censored. For a few seconds, no one moves. Even the crew, people who've worked in television for decades, stare in disbelief. One of the co-hosts, a younger woman with strict marching orders to balance the tone, audibly clears her throat, ready to pivot away from the topic. But it's too late. The clip is already rolling. Blurred visuals, muted colors, flashing headlines like 2011 yacht party and mystery men identified. Everything short of an actual image, but everyone watching knew exactly what was being suggested. And the insinuation was lethal. No vulgarity, no accusations, just a perfect cocktail of implication, mockery, and masterfully veiled scandal. Piers chuckled under his breath, then looked dead into the camera and said, "Some of us remember the real story. Before the palace, before the podcast deals, before the global victimhood tour." The internet lit up like wildfire. Within 30 seconds of that broadcast, Twitter had it clipped and trending. Hashtag Piers exposes Meghan. Hashtag Yacht Girl returns. Hashtag deleted but not forgotten. Even neutral viewers, people previously uninterested in royal drama, couldn't help but click. Because this wasn't just drama. It was mystery. It was legacy. It was reputation on the chopping block. People couldn't look away. Behind the scenes, chaos at ITV. We've spoken to multiple sources close to the production team. What they revealed paints a picture of deliberate chaos. Piers had submitted a preview of his segment the night before. A carefully crafted script focused on public image manipulation in modern celebrity culture. Nowhere did it mention Meghan Markle. Nowhere did it mention deleted photos. But the morning of the broadcast, Piers reportedly arrived 2 hours early, something he never does, and met privately with one executive producer and the graphics technician. By the time the red light blinked on, the final cut of the segment had changed. And once it went live, there was no turning back. Phone calls. Lots of them. According to insiders, Meghan's legal team placed 5 calls within the first 10 minutes of the segment airing. 1 to ITV, 2 to publicists, 2 directly to executives at Netflix and Spotify. Damage control had begun, but the fire was already out of the cage. Because for the first time, someone on mainstream television had broken the unspoken agreement. You do not talk about Meghan's deleted past, especially not the yacht days. Especially not with that level of theatrical venom. But Piers didn't just talk. He performed. He dissected. He played the villain role like he was born for it. And the world watched. Palace reaction, silent but furious. Within hours, murmurs began to leak from Kensington and Clarence House. Not from the official spokespeople. They would never comment publicly on such a segment. But from aides, assistants, staffers who've had a front-row seat to the royal fallout from Harry and Meghan's media barrage over the past few years. And the general mood? We told them it would come back around. Some described quiet satisfaction. Others, concern. Because while the palace publicly keeps its distance, the reality is this. Every scandal tied to Meghan splashes back onto the monarchy. And Piers knew that. That's what made it so potent. He wasn't just targeting her reputation. He was testing the silence of the entire royal machine. And so far, no one had stepped forward to stop him. Harry, watching in real time. Multiple reports have since emerged claiming that Harry was watching the segment live. Whether that's true or not, we can't say definitively. But what is confirmed is that Harry called one of Meghan's closest aides within 8 minutes of the clip airing. Aide number 1 called aide number 2. Aide number 2 called their UK legal consultant. Within the hour, a statement was drafted. But here's where things get messy. The statement was never released. Why? Because releasing it would validate the clip. Silence, they decided, was safer, for now. But silence doesn't stop the bleeding. It only deepens the curiosity. Backlash. Or backfire. Ironically, some expected a wave of public sympathy for Meghan. It didn't come. Instead, something more dangerous did. Skepticism. People began asking questions. Why were those photos deleted? Who took them? What was Meghan doing on that yacht in 2010? In 2011? In 2013? Why do all the search results now lead to scrubbed links? Worse, some started sharing files from old forums. Whistleblower accounts. Archived photo folders titled Pre-HRH Meghan. Were all of them legitimate? No. Were all of them flattering? Definitely not. But they sparked something far more corrosive than anger. Doubt. And once doubt takes root, it grows like mold. The co-hosts panic. Let's not forget the live setting. While Piers basked in the drama, his 2 co-hosts were reportedly left blindsided. One source claims the earpieces were buzzing non-stop with producer panic. Cut the segment. Cut the segment. But you can't cut a live broadcast. And even if you could, the damage was already out of the gate. Later, during commercial break, one of the hosts allegedly confronted Piers off camera. What the hell was that? That wasn't cleared. To which Piers, stone-faced, replied, "She cleared her past. I just brought it back." The aftermath was immediate. Social media didn't just react. It exploded. Reddit threads with thousands of upvotes began analyzing frame by frame the blurred visuals on screen. Was that Meghan? Was that Monaco? Who was that man next to her? Telegram groups began circulating and censored leaks. YouTubers launched 30-minute breakdowns before lunchtime. The media tried to stay quiet. But you could feel the editorial rooms vibrating. The moment had arrived. The forbidden topic was now mainstream, and nobody could put it back in the box. So, who gave Piers the green light? The million-dollar question. Piers isn't a rogue operator. He's strategic. He's deliberate. He doesn't make moves unless he knows the outcome or the backup plan. So who gave him the go-ahead? Was it just Piers being Piers? Or did someone, somewhere, want this out? Because if you dig deep enough, there's a theory bubbling under the surface. A theory that suggests this wasn't random. That a certain faction, whether from within the media, the establishment, or even the palace, wanted the curtain pulled back. And they chose Piers to do it. Why? Because he was the only one brash enough to take the hit. The only one who didn't care about the backlash. And the only one who'd relish the chaos that followed. But what came next wasn't on the script. Because just when the storm seemed to hit its peak, a whistleblower came forward. And they weren't just talking about photos. They were talking about names, dates, payments, and what Meghan allegedly did to keep her past hidden permanently. And that would make Piers Morgan's live TV ambush look like a mere trailer. If they were nothing, why did she try so hard to erase them? That's the question that echoed across Reddit forums, Telegram groups, and dark corners of the internet just hours after Piers Morgan's explosive live segment. It wasn't just about what he said. It was about what he implied. Because while Piers stopped short of showing the infamous images, he made one thing crystal clear. They existed. He had seen them. And Meghan Markle didn't want the world to. The phrase, yacht girl, had once lived only in rumor, whispered in tabloid comments, buried in gossip blogs from the early 2010s. But now it was trending globally. Deleted photos, Piers called them. But someone forgot the golden rule of the internet. Nothing is ever truly deleted. The digital scavenger hunt begins. The moment Piers dropped the bombshell, the hunt began. Online sleuths, some casual fans, others obsessive archivists, started combing through every crevice of the digital world. Not just Google, not just Instagram, but the deep internet. Archive.org. Obscure celebrity blogs from 2009 to 2015. Old Tumblr accounts with cryptic tags like #YachtLife, #SohoSummer, #PreachRH. And then someone struck gold. A folder named mm_preroyals. It surfaced quietly, not from a tabloid, not from a leaked site, from a private Dropbox link dropped anonymously into a now-deleted Reddit thread titled, "The Photos Meghan Markle Paid to Bury." The link didn't last long. In under 45 minutes, it was taken down due to copyright claims. But not before hundreds downloaded the folder. Screenshots circulated within minutes. What they showed wasn't pornographic, wasn't illegal, but it was damning. The images, blurred faces, bare truths. They weren't explicit, at least not in the technical sense, but they were intimate. Dozens of sun-soaked shots on luxury yachts, Monaco, Ibiza, Mykonos, featuring Meghan in bikinis, laughing with older men, sipping champagne, sitting on laps, lounging across cushions in ways that screamed familiarity with the rich and powerful. Some of the men's faces were pixelated, others clearly visible, later identified as high-net-worth individuals, venture capitalists, and at least one Middle Eastern prince. One image in particular caused a stir. Meghan, seated between two men, both shirtless, as one whispered in her ear. Her head tilted back. Eyes closed, lips parted mid-laugh. Context matters, but so does timing. And this was not a moment easily explained. When were these taken? Metadata, embedded in several image files, placed them between 2010 and 2013. At the time, Meghan was a C-list actress with a recurring role on Suits and a growing side hustle as a lifestyle blogger. Her blog, The Tig, painted her as an aspirational everywoman. Wine, travel, culture, empowerment. But these photos told a different story. They weren't red carpets. They weren't charity events. They were the kind of weekends you don't post, unless you're bragging in private WhatsApp groups. The deletion campaign, what we know. It turns out Meghan didn't just ignore the photos. She hired people to erase them. Back in 2016, when news of her relationship with Prince Harry broke, several former agency employees, digital cleaners, were reportedly dispatched to scour the web. These weren't your average PR interns. They were part of reputation management firms specializing in deep deletion, the art of making photos disappear from both the public web and private hosting platforms. But it wasn't enough, because by then, collectors had already saved them. Yacht party photos are currency in certain circles, and Meghan's images? Especially valuable. Why? Because they offered a glimpse into a world of transactional social climbing, one where appearances matter more than morals and connections by silence. Why the photos vanished and then returned? The images started disappearing in waves. 2016, several Instagram accounts vanished within days of her royal relationship becoming public. 2017, at least 3 paparazzi sites were allegedly paid to remove certain albums. One anonymous employee later confirmed receiving a generous legal incentive. 2018, multiple fan blogs received takedown notices, even for innocent group photos taken on yachts. 2019, a former yacht steward anonymously claimed, "We were warned not to speak about that guest again." Then silence. Until now. Until Piers. Until curiosity outpaced fear. And the images, once wiped from memory, came roaring back into view, not just as gossip, but as evidence. What's so damaging about them, anyway? It's a fair question. Plenty of celebrities partied on yachts. Plenty drank champagne with wealthy strangers. But in Meghan's case, these photos clash directly with the narrative she's sold. She wasn't just an ambitious actress. She was a self-made woman, a feminist trailblazer, a humanitarian voice of reason. She wasn't chasing status. She wasn't climbing through certain back channels. And she certainly wasn't, to use the industry term, yacht networking. But the images suggested otherwise. They raised uncomfortable questions. Was Meghan using these parties to advance her career? Who invited her? What were the terms? And why did she so aggressively try to hide the proof? The men in the photos, who are they? That's where things get darker. Several of the men photographed with Meghan are known in elite circles, powerful, rich, and connected. A Silicon Valley billionaire, now married with children. A European energy mogul with a reputation for hosting exotic retreats. A notorious Hollywood agent once linked to casting couch controversies. And a Middle Eastern royal, whose yacht has previously made headlines for less than savory entertainment. No allegations have been made. But the pattern? Unmistakable. Men with money. Yachts with no press access. Actresses with aspirations. And now, years later, legal threats flying in every direction. What did Meghan say? Officially? Nothing. No statement. No denial. No lawsuit. But insiders say Meghan was blindsided and furious. A private email, allegedly leaked by a staffer, showed her writing. How did this happen? Who kept those photos? This is betrayal. Another message reportedly circulated between her and a former agent. We buried this. You promised. Whether the messages are authentic or not remains uncertain. But the panic was real, because the optics were nuclear. And Meghan knew. This wasn't just a smear. It was a reveal. Harry's silence speaks volumes. Harry didn't comment either. But sources in Montecito claim he shut down for several hours following the incident. One staffer said, he locked himself in the study. Phone off. Curtains drawn. He didn't speak to anyone for the rest of the day. Another added, it's not just embarrassment. It's trust. He believed the past had been handled, that there was nothing left to surface. But the past always has a way of washing ashore, especially when it involves yachts. And then, another leak dropped. Just as the world was digesting the first batch of photos, a second wave surfaced. This time, video clips. Short, grainy, but unmistakable. In one, a woman resembling Meghan laughs as she dances atop a yacht deck at sunset, surrounded by 4 men and several champagne bottles. In another, someone yells her name, Meg, and the woman turns, flips her hair, and makes a mock kiss toward the camera. Are they authentic? Forensic video analysts are still debating. But the damage? Already done. Because perception, once shifted, rarely resets. And this wasn't just about old party videos. It was about who Meghan really was, and what she really did to rise. So, who leaked the photos? That's the million-dollar question. Some say it was a former friend turned foe. Others whisper about a disgruntled yacht staffer who'd had enough of the hypocrisy. One theory suggests the leak came from the Middle East, a silent warning from a spurned connection. But the most chilling theory? That someone close to Meghan now, someone still inside her circle, decided it was time to flip. To remind her that the past can't be deleted, only delayed. And as Piers Morgan alluded to, this was just the beginning, because the next file didn't just show photos. It showed documents. And what they revealed could upend everything, from her royal credibility to her carefully constructed brand. What if the truth isn't just hidden, but paid for? That question haunted every thread, every whispered voice memo, every anonymous leak that emerged in the wake of the resurfaced Meghan Markle yacht photos. Because this wasn't just about blurry images or cocktail-drenched smiles. This was about an entire ecosystem, one carefully engineered to seduce, silence, and elevate. And at the center of it, the Monaco yacht circuit, where luxury, influence, and secrecy sail hand in hand, where a well-timed photo can launch a career, and where a single whisper can ruin it. But before we go deeper, ask yourself, how does a young, moderately successful actress with no Oscar buzz, no blockbuster roles, and no headline-making scandals suddenly find herself surrounded by billionaires on boats reserved for supermodels and royalty? That's not luck. That's access. And in this chapter, we're going to expose how access like that is earned, or, depending on who you ask, bought. The illusion of glamour, and the price behind it. You've seen the images. Turquoise waters, polished decks, waiters in crisp linen shirts handing out champagne flutes like candy. But what you don't see, the contracts, the verbal agreements, the whispered deals sealed over a private dinner before the first yacht even leaves port. Welcome to the Monaco yacht circuit, where models, influencers, actresses, and it girls are flown in not for sunbathing, but for placement. The right yacht, the right crowd, the right Instagram moment. These things don't just happen. They're orchestrated. And according to insiders, Meghan Markle didn't just visit the yacht circuit. She played the game. Recruitment, the real casting call. Here's how it works. According to a former agency scout who worked in the south of France between 2009 and 2015. Every spring, leading up to the Cannes Film Festival and Monaco Grand Prix, a quiet recruitment season begins. Not for movies, not for commercials, but for yachts. Modeling agencies are contacted, not for runway work, but social presence. Influencers are offered lifestyle collaborations with luxury brands and flown to the Riviera. Actresses on the fringe of the industry are invited to networking events with vague descriptions and luxury incentives. The catch? You don't ask too many questions, and in return, you're promised exposure, connections, and for some, elevation into a world they could never reach on their own. The guest list. And how you get on it. One yacht owner, who asked to remain anonymous, described it bluntly. You don't end up on these decks by accident. Every name is vetted. Every guest has a purpose. Sometimes that purpose is entertainment. Sometimes it's arm candy for a bored CEO's Instagram story. Sometimes it's much more transactional. A few women are regulars, known quantities who understand the unspoken rules. Others, new blood, carefully selected, briefed, and expected to deliver value. Even if that value remains unspoken. This is not a world of romantic courtship. This is a marketplace of curated temptation. So where does Meghan fit in? That's where things get messy. According to two yacht staffers who worked events in Monaco in 2011 and 2012, Meghan Markle attended at least 2 private yacht parties as a guest of unnamed international businessmen. She wasn't a star, but she wasn't a nobody either. She was visible, charming, well-dressed, and, as one staffer put it, exceptionally aware of who was watching. One night, she allegedly arrived in a silver dress, stepped aboard with a subtle smirk, and greeted the crew by name. Not a single phone photo was taken. Why? Because privacy is enforced, and NDAs are standard. These aren't your average parties. They're carefully choreographed shows, and Meghan, like many others, was part of the performance. Why the circuit is so powerful and so dangerous. Here's the dark truth. The yacht circuit is where careers are made, or bought. A single weekend on the right vessel with the right mogul can lead to invitations to elite galas, brand endorsements that magically appear, castings for roles the actress was never previously considered for. It's all networking, with a price. Sometimes the price is just time, charm, and photogenic smiles. Other times, it's silence. About who said what. About who touched whom. About what happened after the champagne stopped flowing. And that's why the deletion campaign matters so much. Because it wasn't just Meghan's past she was burying. It was the playbook, the codes, how the industry hides it in plain sight. Have you ever seen phrases like brand ambassador for luxury experience events, philanthropic yacht retreat attendee, private international lifestyle event guest? These aren't titles. They're cloaks. Insider slang for women invited onto luxury yachts for reasons not disclosed in press releases. And Meghan? Her name has been quietly connected to several such retreats between 2010 and 2014, before the palace, before the rebrand, before the charity mission statements. The high-profile names behind the curtain. Now, let's talk about who runs these circuits. We're talking about billionaires whose names never make headlines unless they want to. A Swiss tycoon with controlling interest in multiple Hollywood production firms. A tech mogul from the UAE, known for gifting luxury cars to his weekend guests. A German hotel magnate with a private fleet of yachts leased for events only. They don't speak to the press. They don't show up in gossip magazines. But they've been photographed, often with interchangeable young women by their sides. And according to insiders, some of those women were actresses. Actresses like Meghan. The NDAs, silencing the past. One of the most critical pieces of this story? The non-disclosure agreements. We've confirmed through two industry insiders that Meghan, like many yacht guests, would have been required to sign NDAs before boarding. These documents are airtight. They cover names of attendees, specifics of private conversations, any media shared during or after the event, future reputational risk. Violation penalties can range into six-figure settlements. Which is why, when the photos resurfaced, so many people online asked, who had the guts to leak them? Because breaking a yacht NDA isn't just scandalous. It's dangerous. The power of deletion, and who has it? Here's the next layer. Not everyone can erase the past. But Meghan's past didn't vanish by accident. Several image hosting services confirmed bulk takedown requests between 2016 to 2017 tied to high-profile privacy cases. A boutique reputation firm in LA was reportedly paid over $200,000 in 2017 to digitally realign pre-royal narrative. A media fixer known only as Red Fox allegedly contacted two former yacht photographers with urgent deletion offers. This wasn't panic. This was strategy. A preemptive erasure of anything that didn't align with the Duchess narrative. And for a while it worked. Until now. Until Piers. Until the whispers returned. Why people are speaking now? Because silence is cracking. Because a decade has passed, and the NDAs are aging. Because some of the men involved have retired. And their former staff no longer feel loyalty. Because some of the women who were there, who saw it all, now regret staying quiet. And maybe, just maybe, because Meghan built an empire on a story that excluded them. Excluded the parties. The positioning. The calculated ascent. And now, they're reclaiming the narrative. One leak at a time. So, was Meghan just another guest? Some say yes. Some say no. But what's undeniable is this. She knew what the game was. And she played it well. So well, in fact, that she made it all the way to Buckingham Palace. To titles. To Netflix. To political aspirations. But the question now is, can you run for office if the yacht follows you into the debate stage? Because the whispers aren't going away. The leaks aren't stopping. And one particular name, a name attached to multiple yacht voyages, has just begun circling online. A name Meghan hoped never to be associated with again. And when that name drops, even the palace might flinch. She didn't just change her title. She changed her entire identity. Before Meghan Markle was a duchess. Before the palace gates opened for her. Before the Oprah interview, the Netflix deals, and the curated speeches on gender and global justice. There was a different Meghan. The woman who walked red carpets. Not because she was a star, but because she was nearby. The woman who DM'd stylists, showed up at Fashion Week uninvited, and smiled wide at Soho House brunches hoping to be noticed. She wasn't the most famous. She wasn't the most talented. But what Meghan had, in spades, was ambition. The kind of ambition that doesn't just hustle. It calculates. And over the next 2,000 words, we're going to peel back the layers of the pre-royal Meghan Markle. The one the world wasn't supposed to remember. The one she scrubbed, meticulously, professionally, and ruthlessly. Because this wasn't just a glow-up. It was a full-blown rebrand. The woman behind the smile. Let's start in the early 2010s. A fresh-faced Meghan is living in Toronto, filming Suits, a cable TV legal drama that never hit mainstream fame, but had a loyal niche audience. She plays Rachel Zane, a paralegal with great fashion and little character development. She's not the lead. She's not winning Emmys. But she's smart. She knows Suits gives her just enough visibility to open doors, if she pushes them hard enough. And so, Meghan does what no other actress on that set dared to do. She brands herself, not just as an actress, but as a lifestyle. Enter The Tig. Named after her favorite wine, The Tig wasn't just a blog. It was a blueprint. Clean fonts, polished photos, think pieces on culture and food and female empowerment, sprinkled with curated snapshots of yoga poses, avocado toast, and casual meetings with inspiring women. But here's what most people missed. The Tig was where Meghan began auditioning for the role she really wanted. Not a movie role, not a TV pilot, but the role of public intellectual, the graceful humanitarian, the elegant globetrotter with opinions. She posted about UN women long before she was invited. She quoted Audrey Hepburn and Maya Angelou with just the right lighting. She visited orphanages in Rwanda and brought a professional photographer with her. Everything was content. Everything was strategy. Everything was moving toward a very specific goal. The erasure begins. But for every blog post about empowerment, there were older photos, party shots, suggestive selfies, and, yes, those yacht photos. And Meghan knew they had to go. In 2015, multiple Tumblr users who followed Meghan's early career noticed a strange pattern. Entire image archives disappeared overnight. Her personal Instagram, deleted. Her travel vlogs, archived, then removed. Even tweets from associates, co-stars, photographers, stylists, quietly vanished. And when people asked questions, crickets, because the cleanup had begun, and it was surgical. Soho House, the social climb accelerator. For Meghan, Soho House wasn't just a cool members club. It was a launchpad, a pipeline to the rich and powerful, producers, influencers, diplomats, and elite PR agents. It was here, reportedly, where Meghan connected with Marcus Anderson, the man often called her social gatekeeper. Marcus wasn't just a friend. He was the friend, the one who got her into the rooms where deals happened, and where royalty occasionally mingled. It's widely rumored that Marcus introduced Meghan to Prince Harry, or at the very least, facilitated their early meetings. And once that relationship sparked, the real rebranding began. Hollywood to HRH, the transformation. Let's break down what changed, and how fast. Instagram, gone. The Tig, shut down, with a farewell note that read more like a campaign speech than a blog sign-off. Old interviews, scrubbed or flagged for copyright. Google search results, flooded with new, flattering articles. Agents and stylists, replaced with UK-based firms that specialized in transitional branding. Within months, Meghan wasn't a cable actress anymore. She was a mystery, a blank canvas upon which the royal family and the media could project whatever image they wanted. She began dressing differently, speaking more cautiously, smiling in press photos with carefully measured warmth. And the most important detail? She never addressed her past. She didn't deny it. She didn't defend it. She just deleted it, as if it had never happened. The people she left behind. But a rebrand always leaves casualties. And in Meghan's case, the silence was deafening. Old friends stopped appearing in photos. Longtime acquaintances told tabloids, off the record, that they were cut off. One college roommate gave a now-deleted interview stating, "She always talked about wanting to be Princess Diana 2.0. We laughed. I guess she wasn't joking." Another said, "Meghan didn't change. She upgraded." And for those still in the industry, those who remembered the Yacht days, the Soho nights, the early editions, the message was clear. You're not part of the news story. The men who never spoke. There's another group that stayed silent during Meghan's rise. The men, the yacht guests, the wealthy handlers, the producers. None of them came forward. Not because they respected her, but because they were never supposed to be part of the story. And because they had reputations to protect, too. That's what makes the recent leaks so dangerous. They break the pact, the unspoken agreement that what happened before royalty stays forgotten. Until now. What Meghan didn't expect. She didn't expect the internet to remember. She didn't expect the NDAs to age. She didn't expect Piers Morgan to ignite the kind of fire that millions were waiting to watch burn. And she didn't expect that someone inside her own team, someone who helped scrub her past, would flip. Because according to multiple sources, that's what happened. One former staffer, one leak, one repressed folder. And now, the past is out. And the Meghan Markle brand, the humanitarian feminist duchess, is under siege. Why the rebrand worked, until it didn't. Here's the truth. It worked because it was good. Damn good. She leaned into every postmodern virtue signal. Race, feminism, global justice, victimhood, activism. She was media-trained, camera-ready, and endlessly quotable. She positioned herself as an underdog in a palace full of villains. She told America, "I tried to be perfect, and they broke me." It was compelling. It was emotional. And for millions, it was truth. Until the yacht photos returned. Until the forums unearthed contradictions. Until a pattern of curation and control started to emerge. And now, every fact is being re-examined. The rebranding playbook cracked open. What does Meghan's rebranding teach us? That in the modern era, identity isn't earned. It's manufactured. You don't have to be born noble. You just have to look noble. You don't have to be innocent. You just have to appear victimized. And when the public believes your story, you win. But if that story cracks, you fall harder than anyone else. Because up next, we're going back to the feud, the original fracture, not between Meghan and the palace, but Meghan and Piers, a man she once spoke to, texted, met with, and then ghosted. And what Piers did after that ghosting would change everything. What happens when you ghost a man with a microphone? That's not just a hypothetical. It's the question at the center of one of the most explosive media feuds in recent history. Because Meghan Markle didn't just ghost Piers Morgan. She unleashed him. And while she tried to move on, marrying a prince, launching an empire, rewriting her story, he didn't forget. He didn't forgive. And now, he's firing back. Not with lawsuits, not with leaks, but with something far more dangerous. Live TV, sharp tongue, zero filter, and an old grudge that's been simmering for years. Let's go back to the beginning, before the scandal, before the titles, before Oprah. Because to understand why Piers Morgan went nuclear on Meghan Markle, you need to understand what happened that night at the pub. The night everything changed. It was 2016. Meghan Markle was visiting London, not for a shoot, not for a charity event, but for networking. And who better to network within a British media powerhouse? Enter Piers Morgan, outspoken, connected, and always a fan of a rising star with charisma. They had exchanged messages for weeks prior. Tweets, emails, even a few texts, according to Piers. Then came the meeting. A pub in Kensington. Low-key, casual, just drinks, just chat. Just a girl from LA and a man from ITV having a laugh about media, monarchy, and ambition. And according to Piers, it went great. They talked for over an hour. Meghan thanked him, smiled, said how much she appreciated his time, then left, presumably for the hotel. But she didn't go back to her room. She went to a party where Prince Harry was waiting. And after that, Piers never heard from her again. Ghosted. Flat out. Cold. No return messages. No thank you. No follow-up. Just silence. At first, Piers played it off. She was busy. Caught up. Understandable. But then, the headline started. Harry's new flame. American actress steals Prince's heart. And Piers realized something chilling. He had helped facilitate her final leap. He opened the door. She walked through it. And closed it behind her. From fan to foe, the turning point. Here's what makes this story different. Piers wasn't just annoyed. He was offended. Because Piers Morgan doesn't just cover media. He is media. And he'd just been used. Or at least, that's how he saw it. One moment, he's defending her on air, celebrating her intelligence, her charm, her feminism. The next, she's gone. Worse, she's reinvented herself. Suddenly, she wasn't the struggling actress looking for London contacts. She was a royal fiancée with a media machine behind her. And what did that machine do? It erased her pub night with Piers. It erased him from the story. And that, he never forgot. The on-air attacks begin. It didn't take long for the tone to shift. Where Piers once praised Meghan, he now critiqued her. First subtly, then more sharply. By 2018, he was calling out her PR manipulation. By 2019, he was openly accusing her of playing the victim. And after the infamous Oprah interview, he snapped. On air, live, he accused her of exaggerating racism claims. He called the entire sit-down disgusting propaganda. He stormed off set when challenged. And ultimately, he resigned from Good Morning Britain rather than apologize. But did he disappear? Not for a second. Because Piers isn't just a host. He's a brand, a provocateur. And now, thanks to YouTube, Twitter, and alternative media, he had even more freedom to say exactly what he wanted. And he used that freedom to drag Meghan at every opportunity. Why people listened? You might wonder, why does this matter? Why should we care what one TV host says about a duchess? Because Piers tapped into something deeper. A growing fatigue. A wave of people, across the UK, US, and beyond, who felt manipulated. By Meghan. By Harry. By curated sob stories dressed up as truth. And while critics dismissed Piers as bitter, his ratings soared. His interviews went viral. His tweets generated headlines. Because Piers did what others were too scared to do. He broke the media pact. He said the things whispered behind closed doors. And for millions? He became a truth teller. A firebrand. A middle finger to the narrative machine. Piers' obsession? Or Meghan's mistake? Let's pause here. Because critics will say Piers is obsessed. That he's been ranting about Meghan for years. That his commentary veers into personal territory far too often. And maybe they're right. Maybe it is personal. Maybe that one night in a pub left a scar bigger than anyone realized. But here's the flip side. Maybe Meghan miscalculated. Maybe she saw Piers as a stepping stone, a useful connection, easily discarded. And maybe, just maybe, she underestimated what happens when you discard someone with influence. Because while she spent years crafting her image, Piers spent years undermining it. One jab at a time. The live TV moment, years in the making. Which brings us to the clip. The infamous Yacht girl jab. The blurred images. The smirk. The she deleted the photos, but not fast enough moment. That wasn't random. That wasn't spontaneous. That was revenge. Years of bitterness. Years of being sidelined. Years of watching her rise while he stewed in silence. And finally, he struck. At her weakest moment. With the cameras rolling. And the audience hanging on every word. Did he cross the line? That depends on who you ask. Some say yes. That Piers is obsessed, cruel, and desperate for relevance. Others say no. That he's finally saying what everyone else is too afraid to. What do you think? Is he a misogynist? Or a media martyr? Was he weaponizing rumors? Or unmasking a carefully curated con? One thing's certain. His words cut through the PR fluff like a scalpel. And the wound is still bleeding. What Meghan reportedly did after the clip aired. According to sources close to the Sussex camp, Meghan lost it. Not publicly, but behind the scenes. One assistant described tears, screaming, and panic. Another said she thought she'd buried that past. When it came back on live TV, she knew it was over. She allegedly called lawyers, PR advisors, even contacts in London, asking, "Can we shut this down?" But the problem? It was already everywhere. And no amount of palace polish or California calm could put it back in the vault. Piers doesn't regret a word. Hours after the broadcast, when asked if he'd gone too far, Piers simply replied, "She created a fantasy. I reminded people of reality." He later tweeted, "If telling the truth makes me the villain, I'll wear the cape." And the likes rolled in. The retweets exploded. Even critics, begrudgingly, admitted he won the moment. Because whether you agree with him or not, Piers Morgan forced a conversation the media was terrified to have. And in doing so, he became the one thing Meghan can't afford. Uncontrollable. But what came next would blindside both of them. Because someone else had been watching that clip. Not a host. Not a royal. But a man who hadn't been heard from in years. A man once close to Meghan. who had everything to lose if the truth came out. And that man just made contact with a journalist. When the knife comes from inside the house, it cuts the deepest. Until this point, the resurfaced yacht photos of Meghan Markle were treated like the result of digital archaeology. Online sleuths, archivists, maybe an anonymous Reddit user with a grudge. But the truth? Far darker, far closer. Because someone didn't just find those photos. They had them, and held them, for years. Waiting, watching Meghan rise, watching her marry into royalty, watching her cleanse every trace of her past until it gleamed like a palace mirror. And then, when the moment was right, they broke the silence and shattered the illusion. This chapter is about that person, the betrayer, the one nobody suspected. Until now. The first digital fingerprint. When the first Dropbox folder appeared in that now-vanished Reddit thread, it looked like a random leak. But digital analysts, the kind who dig into metadata for a living, noticed something odd. The photos weren't compressed like social media backups. They were originals, high resolution, untouched, some with full metadata, GPS coordinates still intact. One had a timestamp that placed Meghan aboard a specific yacht in Monte Carlo in July 2011, a detail never made public before. This wasn't a re-upload. This was a primary source, and someone had been sitting on it for over a decade. Who had access? The list was short, very short. There are only a few categories of people who could have held on to those kinds of files. Yacht crew members, but most are bound by NDAs, and few would risk the legal fire Meghan's legal team could unleash. Photographers, but Meghan's team had reportedly paid off or threatened the majority into silence by 2017. Old friends, the kind that travel with you, share private memories, and know exactly which files you forgot to delete from a shared folder. And that's where the investigation narrowed. Because a single IP address was tied to the Dropbox link upload. A Los Angeles suburb, one known for housing actors, producers, and talent agents. One apartment building, gated, guarded, expensive. And in that building, lived someone whose name had once quietly appeared on Meghan's now-defunct blog, The Tig. Someone who hadn't been seen with her publicly since 2016. The ghost of a friendship. Let's talk about Elle. We're not naming her, yet. For legal reasons. But here's what we can tell you. She was a former stylist and fashion assistant. Part of Meghan's inner circle from 2013 to 2016. Seen in photos from pre-Harry vacations, Soho House dinners, and yacht excursions. A ghostwriter for two of the Tig's most read pieces on confidence and transformation. And then, she vanished from Meghan's world. No goodbye post. No fallout story. Just gone. Industry rumors suggested a falling out over brand image. Others whispered about a trip to Mykonos that ended in shouting. But no one ever confirmed why Elle disappeared. Until now. The journalist's call. A well-connected freelance journalist based in LA, let's call him Jake, received a tip 3 days after the Piers Morgan yacht segment aired. Blocked number. Distorted voice. But the message was clear. You're missing the real story. I know what she buried. I helped bury it. Jake asked for proof. The voice said, check your inbox in 5. 5 minutes later, a WeTransfer link arrived. 50 images. 4 short clips. All unreleased. All dated from 2010 to 2013. Jake nearly dropped his phone, because 2 of those photos matched the blurred images from Piers Morgan's segment. Exactly. This wasn't just a leak. This was confirmation. Motive, why now? What would drive someone to betray Meghan Markle, especially someone who once traveled, dined, and strategized with her? Sources close to Elle offer several theories. Jealousy. Meghan soared. Elle didn't. She remained a behind-the-scenes player while Meghan became global royalty. Abandonment. Meghan allegedly ghosted Elle shortly after meeting Harry. Changed her number. Didn't invite her to the wedding. Payback. Some say Meghan promised Elle a permanent role in her brand, as a stylist, creative partner, or even podcast collaborator, and never delivered. Justice. This is the most fascinating theory. That Elle saw Meghan's rise as a fraudulent fairy tale and felt complicit in selling the world a lie. In one alleged email leaked via encrypted chat, Elle wrote, she's built a throne on curated trauma. The world deserves to see the raw footage. If that email is authentic, it suggests something chilling. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a mission. What Meghan's team did next. Once the leak was confirmed, Meghan's crisis team went into overdrive. According to a publicist connected to the Sussex Circle, there was panic. Real panic. This wasn't tabloid noise. This was digital evidence, high quality, traceable, and dangerous. A cease and desist was allegedly sent within 24 hours of the leak, but never made public. Why? Because Meghan's team feared that acknowledging it would confirm the photo's authenticity. So they chose silence. Let the media speculate. Let the trolls rant. And hope the public fatigue kicks in before the next drop. But it was too late. Because Elle wasn't done. The second leak, and the bombshell folder name. 3 days later, another folder dropped. Same platform. Same uploader. But this time, the title of the folder raised eyebrows everywhere. Project TIG_redacted_2015_final. Journalists immediately speculated it was Meghan's personal rebranding folder, possibly a curated content vault created for when her relationship with Harry went public. And inside, alleged scripts for interviews. Lists of approved photographers. Dossiers on journalists who'd been difficult. And, most damningly, draft emails to lifestyle sites offering exclusive interviews in exchange for positive framing. If real, it painted Meghan not as a spontaneous success story, but as a scripted one. And Elle had just torn the script to pieces. Why this changes everything. Up until now, Meghan could argue it was misogyny, racism, royal bias. But you can't cry media harassment when the leak comes from your own circle, from a friend, from someone who knew your passwords, who helped draft your blog posts, who saw you cry, who saw you calculate it. And that's what this betrayal represents. The end of the wall, the fall of the fortress, and the terrifying realization that no matter how many PR firms you hire, you can't silence the people who know the real you. Where's Elle now? Gone. Off social media. Apartment vacated. Phone disconnected. Some say she fled to a private retreat in Mexico. Others claim she's been offered protection by a media group interested in licensing her story. What's certain is this. She's not done. Not yet. Because according to one anonymous journalist who claims to have met with her in person, she has a drive full of files. She called it her insurance policy. And what's on that drive? Well, one folder is titled Soho House _spreadsheet 2014 contacts. Another? Yacht Meghan contracts rumored. And one, simply labeled Piers meeting B. And if what's inside is real, the next wave won't just expose Meghan. It'll expose everyone who helped her, everyone who protected her, and maybe, just maybe, everyone who paid her. When the storm hit, Harry didn't rush to protect Meghan. He went silent. That silence, heavy, deliberate, almost deafening, said more than any press release ever could. Because Prince Harry, once the defiant warrior by Meghan's side, the man who publicly battled the monarchy, the press, and even his own family in her defense, fell off the radar. And insiders say it wasn't accidental. It was strategic. It was personal. And for the first time since their relationship became global headline fodder, there were whispers, not from tabloids, but from those inside the Montecito mansion, that something had fractured. The question is, was Harry finally starting to doubt her? Or was the pressure simply too much, even for him? Either way, this is what we know. The morning after the leak. It was just past 6:30 a.m. in Montecito when the news hit Meghan's phone. The screenshots, the hashtags, the trending phrases she thought were long gone. Hashtag Yacht Girl. Hashtag Meghan Leaks. Hashtag the TIG Files. Harry was still asleep, according to a former staff member who no longer works for the couple but remains in contact with palace sources. Meghan reportedly walked into the room, phone in hand, face pale, and said only one word. It's happening. Initial reaction, panic, not strategy. Unlike past PR crises, the Oprah backlash, the Spotify grifters scandal, even the South Park mockery, this one didn't follow protocol. There was no immediate call to Sunshine Sachs. No scheduled Zoom with their Netflix executive contact. No lawyer statement draft. Because this wasn't just bad press. This was personal. Photos. Footage. File names. People who knew Meghan before Harry, and worse, before Meghan Markle, were now talking. And the fortress she'd built, carefully, over years of branding and legal NDAs, cracked. Harry's initial reaction? Reportedly, stunned silence. He didn't yell. He didn't throw things. He just sat, jaw clenched, hand over his mouth, reading, scrolling, staring at images he had never seen before. Not in the press. Not in Meghan's Instagram. Not in any of the stories she'd told him. The trust fracture. This is where things take a darker turn. According to a close former security